In terms of Professor Mashare Munene, are you there? What do you make of this, Raila Odinga candidacy to the AUC, and in terms of even the current political moves that we've seen, members of the predominantly opposition being able to join government at the same time that his candidacy is being flaunted to the rest of the African continent? As you get Prof. Kagwanja, you've mentioned the issue of opposition in government. It is a trend that has taken over Africa for quite a while. Looking at South Africa, Nigeria, and Kenya, we had the nusu mkate at the time, and then now we had the handshake, and we're now in matters broad-based. What is it about opposition that Africa seems not to like?
Well, first and foremost, the idea of opposition in African policy doesn't sit well with our being. And I am sure there are some people who take issue with that. Opposition is not African. And I say so because, the opposition, the way it is. Because if you listen to what Nyerere was telling us, is that as Africans, we like it when we sit down for long hours and long periods to discuss an issue until we agree. Our democracy is not very different from the Greek democracy, which is basically by consensus. And eventually we have to vote. And when we vote or cast the vote, we are saying this is where we are going. That even those who don't agree with us have to move with us together because we want to go there. So our philosophy is very close to the philosophy you find in China. Harmony. You agree that we are different. We are tall, we are short, but at the same time, we must move together. So the quest for harmony. The Western idea where the notion of opposition comes from, believe in one dictum, that progress comes as a result of conflict. So war is inevitable. Conflict is inevitable. And therefore, you institutionalize it. So it's a conflict between the government and the opposition, according to the Westerners, that give us the dialectic. Dialectic is where you have the inferior system giving way to a more superior system. So the opposition is not largely African. But at the same time, neither Nkrumah, nor Nyerere, nor the founding fathers of the continent gave us a better alternative to what we had inherited from colonialism as, this government, which has an opposition and a government. And therefore, we are trying to find a way of how do we then ensure that in our ethnically divided societies that we are able to live together. And that is what has given rise to this idea of power sharing. But then it is such a waste of resources and a waste of time, because in this country we call Kenya, we spend $25 on average to secure the sanctity of the vote, to secure the privacy of the vote, and to secure the right of every individual to vote as an individual. Because the smallest element of a democratic establishment is the individual. And therefore, the protection of the individual vote is so important. But what happens? Immediately we cast the ballot, we start talking about we. So you cast the ballot alone, but you say we in Mount Kenya are marginalized. We in Nyanza need to be in the government. So what was Gachagua saying by talking about shareholders? But is that really in democratic sense a sin? No, because governments are about those who won. The big question is, how do you ensure that winners don't take all and losers don't lose all for the balance in society? But essentially, the government, those who have won the government, have the share of the government, the largest share of the government. And they are the shareholders in that particular government. And those who lose out would be seeking to have a share, not in the government, but in the development process.
Professor Mashare Munene,